Hello. Okay, so today I'm going to be doing a race recap video of the Brighton Marathon 2019. So some points to note. First and foremost, the race itself was really well organised. Certainly everything from collecting packs to the event village to the corrals on the day. I mean, obviously you can have an issue with the toilets. There's undoubtedly always going to be a huge queue for those, but otherwise it was just really well organised, and I felt certainly as a first timer like it was very clear to me what was expected of me and where I needed to go and what I needed to do. Obviously it's a little bit of a faff if you don't live locally collecting race numbers, so you do have to go down there the day before, which means you're sort of committed to either travelling 2 days in a row or staying overnight, which I opted to do. And if you book in advance as well, it's not that expensive to do so. So from that point of view, really fantastic. I can't really complain at all about anything there. Now in terms of the course itself, it was hillier than I had anticipated. I didn't know the course, I suppose, well enough, and that could be my own downfall there. But equally, I went into the race wanting to experience it all, sort of like for the first time. So perhaps I think if I had known slightly more about the course, I could have maybe made a commitment to being faster in certain sections, but we're talking about tens of seconds quicker, we're not talking about minutes quicker. So I think on balance I did what I felt was right for me, and in terms of my fitness I felt fantastic. I mean, this is the day after today, and obviously I'm a little bit sore in places, but yesterday during the race I had no issues with my legs, I had no issues with my sort of my back or my shoulders, a little bit tense at times because of the wind, which I'll speak about in a moment. But overall, everything I was doing was working really well for me, and I felt once I got started, I was really comfortable. I went through a phase probably around about 10k or so, and I think it's a combination of a few things, but I felt a little bit lightheaded, and I think it was the hills were there that I hadn't quite expected to be there. I knew they were coming up early on, but the way they were sort of situated, there was a lot of up and down, so it was that the roar of the crowd was pretty intense. I mean, it was absolutely sensational support. I cannot knock the people that came out to do it, just truly amazing. The hundreds of people, and it was hundreds, who shouted my name and encouraged me, these strangers, I think that was probably the bit that was most overwhelming for me. Like emotionally I was a little bit all over the place early on, because it was just something that I hadn't experienced before. So I think because of that and taking it all in, and because the race started, by the time we got started it was about 10 o'clock, and I suppose I'd eaten at the latest like 7:30, and I had a little bit on the way, but it was a little bit trickier, and I'll talk about that in a different video, nutrition and hydration and what I did there. But I mean, overall I was really pleased with how it all went. For my first marathon, of course I was aiming for 6:05 splits throughout as an average, bringing me in at 4:15, but it was pretty evident to me once we started climbing that it wasn't going to be possible, especially on the hilly sections, for me to maintain that pace. So it's kind of like a race of two halves, and you'll see in a moment. What I'm going to do is put the splits on the screen and kind of talk through the course itself, and then at the end I'm also going to put up there cadence and heart rate if anybody's interested in that, and maybe you can offer some more insight. But generally speaking, I think that's pretty consistent. And in terms of the pace, basically it's kind of like a race of two halves for me. That first half marathon, you'll see what that looks like. In the second half marathon, the pacing slows. But what's been quite interesting for me and reassuring for me is that when I look at other people's race stats from the same race, it's a very similar picture. That latter half, the pace is slowed dramatically. We had some nasty wind. I don't know if you can see here actually. Can you see? Probably not. But where I was wearing my vest, like pink here. Some people got, I don't think it was sunburn, more like a wind burn. But that last 6 miles was tough for everybody. So you got that last 10k where people were definitely dropping off whichever pace they'd set out to do. So what's nice for me to know is I came in at 4:28.12, and I certainly feel on a flatter course I would have absolutely got to 4:15. I feel really confident in that. I could find that 15 minutes. I look through my stats of where that could come from, and especially that last 10k. If you say take 30 seconds for each of the kilometres over that 10k there, that starts to add up. There's like 5 minutes there or so. So I can see where I could find that 13 minutes from my 4:28 to make it a 4:15. But overall, I'm just absolutely elated to have been able to complete the course. I really enjoyed it. It was a fantastic experience, and certainly for my first marathon, it was everything I wanted. A couple of things as well which I think were really important to me in my training. That's thanks to the group that I trained with, was doing hills, so I could be efficient on the hills. And even though my pace was slightly slower, I knew confidently how to tackle the hills, and I watched videos online as well. So I thought a little bit about that. When I was actually going up the hills, I thought, you know what, I feel really confident in this. And if I hadn't done hill workouts, that would have been, I think, a real soul crusher. But I knew how to tackle it, and I knew therefore to take it easy. And then once I had made a decision and kind of realised that it was going to become quite tough for me to maintain the pace, I just settled in, ran basically on feel. I didn't look at my watch apart from towards the very end, because the mile markers are there, but they feel like they're quite a long way apart when I'm used to using kilometres. So I looked down a few times just to give myself a bit of reassurance. But essentially that last half was run basically on feel, and it was pretty consistent, as you'll see in a moment. So I'm going to hand you over to the screen recording where I'm just going to talk over the top of it. And any advice and feedback, please let me know. By the way, if you're going to hear birds, the windows are open and the birds are out. Okay, so we're into kind of the race recap now. We're looking at the splits. I'm just going to talk over this whilst you see it on the screen. So here we go. Obviously, first kilometre straight into an uphill, which was tough. Not the easiest start to any race. And then, of course, because you've gone up, you're coming down. That was nice to come down the back straight, but of course, taking it easy, recognising that I'm using some muscles in my legs that I might not have activated just yet. Continues to climb down as we're heading now sort of back towards the more residential areas before we hit the shore. You can see the splits are a little bit uneven at the moment. And then we're starting to go down again. I'm just being very wary at the moment of not rushing off too fast, thinking about what I've learned from other people. And then we start to climb back up. Pretty good split there actually, 5:46, not doing too badly. Continuing to climb, that was hard work, it was difficult, did not find that easy at all. Still settling into my rhythm, still trying to just find my pace, which was supposed to be around 6:05. Find the pace here as we're going back downhill, some long switchbacks actually, continuing to go downhill again, nice split there, a little bit too hot, 5:46. And then look, another back uphill. These constant sort of downs and ups do play havoc with you really. There we go, some pretty good splits there, 6:02, 6:06, about where I want to be. Feeling good at this stage, and then this climb took it out of me quite a bit because it sort of, I guess, took me by surprise. And we're going back down again, so a little bit up and down, and we'll continue to go down now. And then, we start to now head back towards this section here. You can see another down and up section. This was tough work. Straight down there, but that switchback was a long route down and quite a long route back. I find that quite difficult, and I wasn't starting to feel so hot at this stage. Another long up and down. That was tough work, and at this point the wind is down, really hitting us hard. It's behind us at this stage, which is nice. And we're starting to come back now towards the flatter ground. So I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident, going past Marina Village. And at this point now we're back onto the seafront, which is nice. I'm heading towards, obviously, half marathon stage. There we go. We're going past the finish line, giving us hope that we're getting close to halfway. That's a nice feeling there. Split's not looking too bad at this point. A little bit inconsistent still. Taking advantage of the downhill there. At this point here, I was swapping out my bottle, my nutrition and hydration, which is part of my strategy. Not a bad split, but got the crowd running past family, give it an extra little kick there. At this stage, I'm doing okay with the splits. I'm feeling pretty consistent. We've got a nice average, I think, and then it starts to go a little bit awry. This was harder uphill. After that long flat, you sort of treated yourself, and now it's starting to give you a little kick in the head, which you didn't really want. This was a long road. People next to me saying, this road goes on forever. I didn't really want to hear that. I started to settle into a routine at this point and a pace, because I realised, look, I'm in for the long haul here. I'm doing what I can. The wind's really sort of getting to me. You can see now it's kind of like a race of two halves. Once I get past the halfway point, we're now into the 6:30, 6:46, which is okay. I realised that I was running basically by feel, and I was being pretty consistent with it, so I was pleased with that. Elevations, minimal. We're going down here. This was quite a nice section. Big cheer squad on the side there for the Mind charity. And when I got to this stage, I knew I was making it. Basically, 31 through to 32. At this stage, now it's the furthest I've ever run, 33 kilometres. And you can see here, again, the pacing is pretty consistent, which I'm pleased with. I didn't look down at watch this stage. I just thought, strap in, enjoy the ride and just go for it. This was the most miserable section though. There's just nothing to see around there. That power station was in the distance for so long. Finally got round to it. It's just grim and grey. Yeah, this was going well, and then you can see there's a little elevation. That wasn't needed at all, and I was feeling a little bit cooked at that point, and the wind was absolutely smashing against our faces. And but I knew, look, this is in the bag now. I've got 2K to go, and I do this, regularly. And then this was it. Now I would say that you can still look at that faster split towards the end there, half a K or so. I'll just zoom in. This is where I started to kick around about this roundabout. Just there, you can see just off Madeira Drive. So what we're talking, probably about 600-700 meters, and I just thought, this is it now. I threw my bottle to one side and I just ran as fast as I could, left nothing on the table, and I just gave it my best shot. And that took me to the finish line. So I was really pleased with that. Now, I'll be totally honest with you, I haven't really quite got to grips with understanding so much of all of this, but you can see here, I've just put on the screen, it may be something that other people can give me more of an insight into. So I've got pace, and I've got the heart rate, and I've got the cadence. So those three things are obviously visible on the screen. So we're just going to kind of slowly go through them. I won't necessarily talk over it, but it just gives you a sense of where I was at during the race. And like I say, I'm willing to take advice and feedback from anybody who can offer it. I'll just move through slowly. So I feel like by looking at that, my cadence is pretty consistent throughout. Those couple of dips you see is when I stopped and walked through the water stations, just because it was the simpler thing to do. I'd already thrown water over my face once before. So and then the more extended stop there as well, as I was actually checking another runner because they had had a little bit of a turn. So I was collecting water and I had a quick chat with them, make sure they were okay. But then in terms of the heart rate, I think that's relatively consistent throughout. And then obviously the pacing, you can see it's a little bit up and down, but that tends to mirror the gradient as well. So there we go.